Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here today in the chapel, if you could please kindly turn off or silence all cell phones or electronic devices. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you very much for being here, first of all. Rabbi David Englander of Congregation Bethel, and I'm here also representing our beloved Chazan, Elisa Pomerantz-Boro, certainly thinking of the family today who's out on extended medical leave and getting stronger each day. Also on behalf of Rabbi Sam Hollander, who is at this moment guiding almost 40 teenagers through Israel on our confirmation Israel trip. Otherwise, he certainly would have been here with us as well, and also our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Aaron Krupnick, who I know is close with the family too, and stands with you following loss. I want to acknowledge also that today is the last day of Hanukkah. Hanukkah, most often thought of as a joyous holiday. We know that there is discomfort and even pain of having to observe this 8th day of Hanukkah when our lights are supposed to be the fullest, and now our lights have been dimmed by loss. The thought also occurs to me that from this year on, there will be a yahrzeit candle with your menorah. It sounds like the thought has occurred to you as well. Well, in addition to that being something that is completely unwelcome, as it represents the loss of someone so very special to so very many, hope it's also something that brings great meaning, because Reva's life is one that brought great light to so many, as you will hear about from a number of speakers today in just a few moments from now. We know that their tributes will be heartfelt, and that the themes that they speak of will also inspire all of us to think of ways that we might emulate Reva's finest qualities, of which there were so very many. I want to start by reading a couple of psalms from the rabbinic tradition of Jewish funerals. These psalms represent a number of different ideas relevant to these difficult but meaningful moments. Psalm 15. We hear the psalmist describe what it meant in his day, and I'm sorry to say that I think it was for sure his day, to live a meaningful life. And in his description of a meaningful life, we will hear echoes of some of the commitments of Reva's meaningful life as well. I hope you'll listen for them and relate to them in connection to your own relationship with her. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai mi agor bo halecha mi yishkon bar kadshecha. Holech tamim ufoad tzedek v'dover emet b'ovavo. Lo raga al lishono, lo asa l'rei ra'ah v'charpa lo nasa krovo. Nivzeh be'inav nimas ve'et yirei Adonai chabed nishba laharav v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan b'neshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach oseh ele lo yimot le'olam, a psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor, spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Practice all of your business fairly, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. Turning from the description of a life well and meaningfully lived to a psalm that is probably the most recited one of them all at Jewish funeral services. That is Psalm 23, mentioning the Gates Almavet, the valley of the shadow, translated and interpreted for many years as a valley of the shadow of death. This turns from the one who we've come to remember to those remembering her, because you are entering into this darker space, accompanied and hopefully supported by the love of family and friends, community, faith, and certainly all of your beautiful memories. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achsar binoteshe yarbitzeni, amei menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'ma'an shemo gam ke'elech begeit samavet. Lo ira ra ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorai dishanta v'Hashem en roshi kosi revaya. Achto v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim, a psalm of David. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul and guides me in straight paths for God's own name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're going to turn now to a family that's going to be offering words of memory, no doubt of praise as well. Marcy is going to lead us off.
As you know, my mother was a very strong and determined woman who survived many tragedies in her life. She was probably one of the most determined women that I've ever known. And even with all the difficulties that Mom faced, she managed to make a beautiful life for her family. She was all about living life to her fullest. These past few months exemplified her desire to live and never give up. Every day when we spoke, no matter how bad she felt, she would always answer the phone. Hello? And at the end of the conversation, and she would end the conversation with, "I'm sure I'll feel better tomorrow." She fought for that life that she loved so much until she couldn't. Mom, we love you and know you are at peace. So please hold on to your loved ones and make the most of each day, for each day is so precious.
When you're ready, we'll call on Linda and Jonathan, and they'll be followed by Debbie and John.
I just said to Jonathan, they're not going to be able to see me. It's a very high podium, but there is a footstool. Thank you, honey. Thank you. It warms my heart to see everyone here today to honor our mother, Reva. I have the very emotional yet everlasting honor to be able to send my mom to her final resting place on the very day that she gave birth to me. I know I don't bring this up because I want you to know it's my birthday. I bring it up because this is the date that marks the start of a journey, her journey, that Marcy started to allude to. It tells the story of the strength and the resilience of Reva, our mother. Mom was born to Shirley and Joe in New Jersey, Union City or West New York. We're still not certain. There's no discussion, though, that Mom was born in a taxi cab while Shirley was trying to desperately get to the hospital on time. She was raised in a wholesome Jewish family with her brother Harold. Joel, our papa, had immigrated to the United States from Eastern Europe in 1905. He took up work as a tailor, and he must have figuratively taught that skill to Mom, because as you will see, she was the preeminent tailor of life. She was seamlessly weaving families together with ease. As a child in her home, Mom learned to enjoy Judaism, kashrut, prayer, and song. She had a love of music that was wholly supported by her parents, and she went on to become a music major at Temple University, a multi-talented and multi-instrumental musician, a concert violinist, and then a music teacher. It was while she was a music teacher at an elementary school that she met the school doctor, and she eventually married him, Irv. Together they had a child, and that was me. But it was only 6 months later that Irv tragically died, leaving my mom, a young widow at the age of 24, with a young infant. She moved in with her parents, and I slept in the middle room in a bassinet, which I distinctly think I have one memory of, being the infant in the middle room. And Mom was determined to have a family. She was determined to have what she would have called a normal family. And she wanted me not to suffer because of tragedy. One thing that may not have yet been said is that Mom not only loved life, but she loved love. I cannot say which she loved more because the two are so intertwined. So she went out on a mission to find love that she could live life with again. She wanted to find love so that she could have a family unit for me. She started asking friends to be set up, and she was set up with Leon Shore. And Leon was a widower who had Marcy as his daughter. Reva and Lee fell in love and soon married. Marcy was about 10 years old at the time, and I was 2. And Marcy tells me she was so excited to have a sister. That's at least what she says. I can honestly tell you that I didn't know I ever had life without a sister. I did not remember the days without Leon as my father and without Marcy as my sister. This was the magic of Reva and Leon. You will later learn that she is easily blending families together so seamlessly that the lines of distinction are barely visible. Now, I don't want to imply that I was clueless, but perhaps that I was. I honestly didn't know that I ever had another father. This approach may have not been perfect, but it was perfect for our family at the time. I often did wonder why Marcy was so tall and had long legs and blonde hair, and I was so small and a brunette. But it didn't dawn on me until I started to question one day why Marcy was visiting her aunt, an aunt that was not my aunt. And it was that day, I remember it distinctly, I was being driven to Linwood Elementary School, and I asked my mother, and she told me the story, and needless to say, I did not go to school that day. We sat in the car for hours talking about this story, and that was when I learned about our whole family history. That was about the time that Reva and Lee were having a baby, Debbie. Now, I think Debbie probably caught on to this story quicker than I did. She usually does. But we had a very typical family at this time, 3 sisters and 2 wonderful parents. Fast forward, 18 years of beautiful marriage, and Leon tragically died. In her young 40s, Reva was now another widow again, had lost 2 husbands who loved her dearly. Some people in a lifetime don't experience that much love. Marcy at this time was married. She had 2 beautiful boys. Her newest baby, Michael, was only 6 months old when Leon died. I was in college, and this was an especially difficult time for Debbie, who was still in high school and 15 years old. Of course, there was a lot of grief and loneliness. We went to Aruba for a family trip to help ease our pain. It helped for a short while. The house was very quiet and lonely, especially so for Debbie and Mom. But Mom learned to be a homeowner and be independent. Now, I should correct that. She didn't learn to be independent then. She was always independent. But these events are what caused her to have to exercise these strengths. She took on paying the bills, balancing the checkbook, other homeowner tasks that she had never had to embrace before. I believe that she grew even more determined to support her children. And she silently taught us that we should be independent ourselves, that we should never be helpless should tragedy occur. She supported our education. She learned how to be creative in financing it. Mom did not ever feel sorry for herself or for us. She kept us moving forward. So she attended groups, therapy groups for grieving widows. And it was there that she met Dan Rosard. This was a testament to her will to heal. Mom and Dan married and created a masterpiece of a family, again in seamless fashion. Some might have called us the Brady Bunch, 3 Rosard boys and 3 Shore girls. But we were all pretty much adults when we were blended. It was sometimes complicated, but there was never any thought to having it any other way. Mom and Dan loved their children, each other's children, as if they were their own. And the grandchildren, whoa, forget about that. The grandchildren never knew any other grandparents, and they loved and spoiled those grandchildren so dearly. It was pure joy when Mom and Pop-Pop would come to visit. The grandchildren don't know any others, except perhaps for Joel, maybe knew Leon for a short while. But Mom, especially when she became a widow after Dan passed, Mom was everything to our children. She was their music teacher, their music enthusiast, their fan in the audience when they were having concerts, the cheerleader on the sidelines when they were playing games, and an important advisor when it was needed or wanted. Both she and Dan, very important advisors to our children. She didn't want to miss any milestones. She didn't miss any milestones. On multiple occasions, she traveled to Florida, often alone, to visit Marcy, or to visit family, friends, or to have a holiday. She enrolled in summer camp for elders at Chautauqua. This was her happy place. It included daily activities of music and theater and socialization. She loved it at Chautauqua, even though every time, ironically, when she returned home, she took sick with some virus that she had picked up there. She continued to return every summer. To further illustrate Mom's tenacity, she completely defied the odds when she got COVID in the first wave in April 2020. And she defied those odds. Any other 82-year-old would have died. But she survived it, and she joined our Zoom Seder, and she continued to join all of the Zoom games that we played throughout the COVID pandemic. She was a fighter and a fierce fighter, determined to live life to its fullest. But as you know, she was also very proud. So she took pride in her family. She took pride in her appearance. She dressed beautifully. She took pride in her musicianship, always made us wear lipstick. So when health issues became a part of her daily life, her sense of pride was challenged. When faced with difficulties, though, she always chose family. Mom was not going to let age or changing health get in the way of her family, nor would it deter her from enjoying the opera, classical music, theater, travel, holidays. She finally acquiesced to using a cane and then walking with a walker because she knew that she needed the support of the walker for her balance. She didn't like it because it made her look old at 85. She initially resisted even moving into the Watermark because everyone who lived there was old. But she had a young heart, and that is her story. She couldn't resist, though, eventually, or she couldn't deny the cultural and artistic benefits that she had living in Center City, Philadelphia. Just then, a couple of years ago, she wanted desperately to attend Jeremy's graduation from Syracuse University. And knowing that Syracuse was vast and hilly, we had to talk with her, and we said, Mom, you cannot come with us unless you let us take you in the wheelchair. That was a tough one, but she knew that she wouldn't be able to go if she didn't let us rent the wheelchair. And the resolution was clear. So she attended Syracuse graduation, and she would ambulate with us in the wheelchair. Even last year, when ambulation became difficult, in the last 2 years, she was getting tired. She was determined. She traveled to Scottsdale to attend our cousin Sammy Joe's wedding. And then just last year, when she wasn't feeling well. She attended our cousin Allie's wedding in hilly and altitude Mexico City. She wasn't going to miss anything. She would have continued her life, pursued her hobbies, and attended many more family milestones in that wheelchair had she had the opportunity. We even had a conversation about her oxygen support, and we talked about how she could turn the oxygen nasal cannula into an accessory. Wear pink when it was breast cancer month. She was always down for accessorizing and shopping. Mom, you have taught me and all of us so much about strength, resilience, optimism, and power of love and family. You wanted to live another 10 years, even 20, had you been given the chance, but the years you have given us have been awe-inspiring. I hope that I have inherited a fraction of the strength that you have shown and shared with us. Your life was a blessing, and your memory will be as well. And for those of you that know Mom or Reva, you probably expected a poem. I'm not as good at that as Reva is, but I gave it a whirl, so here's my closing poem. And I will tell you it may not be so good, and I did not use any AI, so maybe that's why. Mom, your next beautiful chapter is about to begin, but your impact on our lives will forever live within. You will be missed beyond words by those you have graced. As your legacy we honor and your memory we embrace.
To be honest, I was overwhelmed when I sat down to write this speech. I had 58 years worth of material with my mom, after all. I knew it would take far too much time to talk about what a wonderful and supportive mother, doting and proud grandmother, enthusiastic, talented musician and teacher, and giving and kind friend my mother was. So instead, I've decided to simply describe a typical Friday over the last few years. First, I would wake up, call my mom at 8 a.m. in order to wake her up in enough time for her to be ready for me to pick her up at noon. She always said that she set her alarm, but often, according to her, her iPhone malfunctioned and the alarm did not go off. Next, she would text me at 11:45 to ask me if I could quickly stop and pick up some of her necessities: clementines, butterscotch crimpets, and small boxes of wine. Okay. At noon, I would arrive to pick her up with the car seats warmers on that she loved so much, even in the summer, since she said it felt like a back massage. As she approached the car, she would always go out of her way to say hello to a friend or two, making sure to let them know that she was going out with her daughter that day. Once in the car, we would pretend to deliberate where we should go that day. But after 5 minutes of discussion, our decision was always the same: Panera and Nordstrom Rack. This was our plan, even on days when neither of us was particularly hungry or in need of new clothes. My mom's favorite days were the sunny and warm ones, where we would eat outside at Panera with our faces to the sun and pretend we were in Florida. But we even enjoyed ourselves as we sat outside to eat lunch in 40-degree weather during the pandemic, wearing gloves and hats and face masks between bites. And even on days where she was so tired and weak that she could barely walk, we still went. We would always eat quickly because Nordstrom Rack was always the highlight. As she pushed her walker through the aisles, we would talk, laugh, complain, gossip, while we searched for the perfect outfit for some future event. Her walker not only conveniently provided a place to briefly sit and rest, since shopping is an exhausting sport, but also gave her a place to put all the things she wanted to try on. She always liked to look to the future. And what better way to look forward to the next graduation, bat mitzvah, or wedding than to shop for a new outfit to wear to it? We would spend a month's worth of Fridays looking for clothes for a future trip to Florida, an outfit for the high holidays, or Hanukkah gifts for her grandchildren. This hunt enhanced her anticipation for the event or occasion, even if it was several months away. Sometimes she even suggested I pick out something for myself, and was usually disappointed that my monochromatic selection did not live up to her flamboyant taste. On the car ride back to her apartment, we would say that maybe next Friday we would try a new place to eat or shop. But we both knew that wouldn't happen. I would remind her that she would need to donate some of her old clothes to make room in her closet for the new ones, and she assured me she would. But we both knew that that also wouldn't happen. I'm not really sure how I'm going to spend my Fridays from now on. I may end up wandering the aisles of Nordstrom Rack, thinking about all the excitement and plans that we made there. Or maybe I'll sit at Panera and look up with my face at the sun, grateful for all those Fridays that we got to spend together. I love you, Mom.
Gary will be next, and then grandchildren, Aaron, followed by Jeremy, followed by Leah, and Naomi will come up as well.
Well, I could really go on and on talking about all the wonderful things about Reva, the joy that she brought to our lives. But I thought I would just show two examples that illuminate the depth of her character and what she meant to us. So you've heard about how her love of her grandchildren, her dedication to her grandchildren, how it just brought so much joy to her life. Well, my husband Anton and I didn't have children, but we had dogs, 2 or 3 at a time. And on Father's Day, she would send us a card, usually with an illustration of dogs or something like that. And when she'd come to visit, she'd bring a little gift for the dogs. Or in Hanukkah parties, there was always something for the dogs. And, you know, it sounds sweet and charming and thoughtful. But what she really showed us was that our family was not less than the others that had kids. She considered us equal members of the family. And we didn't have grandchildren to give her, but we were there, and she loved us as we were. And that had so much meaning for us. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about was when my dad was in decline, and she was taking care of him. He was losing his memory and having trouble getting around. And I went one time, she needed a break, and she, I think, went on, I don't remember exactly, but I think she was going on a trip with her daughters, and I came to stay with my dad for about a week. And we'd go down to the dining hall, and I would sit with all of her friends and got to know them and enjoy their company. And one evening my dad didn't want to go down to dinner. I don't remember the circumstance, but I was talking to her friends, and one of them mentioned, she said, you know, all the women here who still have husbands, they all complain, they talk about how difficult it is taking care of their ailing husbands. But Reva never complained. She just did what she had to do. And I saw the admiration in their face and the respect that they had for her. And I realized how special and how lucky my father was to have that kind of attention and love, and that he was not a burden on her, that she took care of him with love and grace. And me and my brothers are always grateful for the love that my father had at his second go-round at marriage, and the love that she showed for our whole family. So we're going to miss her deeply. Thank you.
All right, so first of all, I just want to thank everyone again for coming to honor the memory of my grandmother. I know she touched so many lives beyond even just her family. For anyone that knew Mum even slightly well, I'm sure they would tell you that one of her defining trademarks was her love of music. And I'm no exception to that. When I think of Mum, the first thing that comes to my mind is her love of music. Of course, she loved classical music, and she would play it and sing it all the time, and she could very well be the only reason I know of some of these classical composers like Brahms or Haydn or Chopin, but it wasn't just listening to music that she liked. She made music a part of every aspect of her life. Back in the day when Mama and Papa used to travel the world, they used to use a company called Grand Circle, and they had like elderly couples go as part of like an itinerary. They would take trips to various parts of the globe. They went to Mexico, they went to Russia, they even went to China, and even as far down as Australia. Usually when Mama and Papa would come to visit for the weekend, they had recently just gotten back from one of these trips, and they would make a huge photo album. I thought it was like the Random House Dictionary. It was so big and thick. And I would sit with Mama at our kitchen table for about an hour going through all those photos, and at the end of each album, in the back cover, there was a song that she wrote about the trip. And it was usually appropriate to the tune was usually appropriate to the place they had gone to. Like for Mexico, they did the Mexican hat dance. For Australia, it was Waltzing Matilda. That was my favorite one, by the way. I remember that one better than all the others. And even Mama would tell you that out of all her grandchildren, I was the one that embraced the song the most. I really just enjoyed that part of it more than anything. And it wasn't just these large international excursions that she wrote songs for. Whenever there was a family function or a birthday party of some sort, she would come prepared with a song, or a poem at the very least. Rhyming and creating poems was her specialty, and it just came so naturally to her. I bet she wouldn't be too happy to know that nowadays anyone could create an eloquent poem using ChatGPT. I even thought about writing this eulogy in the form of a poem, but I just didn't have it in me. As a kid, there were many weekends I would spend with Mama and Papa in their apartment at the Valley Forge Towers. My parents would drive me to the Molly Pitcher rest stop on the New Jersey Turnpike, where Mama and Papa would meet us, and I'd get in their car and go back to their apartment, spend the weekend with them. And I'm so grateful for that quality time I spent with my grandparents as a kid. Papa was very big on education. He always made sure we got some sort of educational experience. We would go to the Constitution Museum or the Franklin Institute. For Mum, it was more about the music. There was a small community theater near where they lived, and I remember seeing Frog and Toad, Seussical the Musical, probably a couple of other musicals, but that was a big part of visiting them and spending the weekend with them. When Mum was a music teacher for preschool kids, sometimes she would bring me along to act as her teaching assistant, so to speak. I must have been like 8 or 9 years old at the time. I made it a point to call her Mrs. Rosard when talking to the kids, and for some reason she loved that. I guess she just wasn't expecting an 8 or 9-year-old to be that astute. In her later years, as she started to ail physically, she wanted more than anything to be able to visit Joel and Ananda in Cambodia. And although my parents and a lot of her other children and stepchildren kind of knew that it wasn't practical at that point, I was determined at some point to take her there myself. And there was a point where even I realized it wouldn't come to fruition, but before that, I was at least optimistic about it. As someone who adored music so much and was an avid violin player for most of her life, it destroyed her more than anything when she could no longer play the violin due to a bad shoulder. She did everything she could to make sure she could play the violin again, and even if it was a medical risk. She eventually had shoulder surgery, enabling her to play the violin again physically, but she just didn't have the energy anymore, and I take comfort in knowing that she can now play the violin once again peacefully in the clouds.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Staple in my life, and so many others too, your love for music lit each room you walked into. The memories with you and Pop-Pop still remain, living forever in my heart, untouched by time or pain. I can't imagine life without you as a part, your presence woven deeply through my heart. You wrote us poems whenever we were together as one, a family wrapped in words and laughter and in love begun. No rhyme will ever sound the same, sound the way that yours once came, but I offer these lines to honor you and your name. Mom, you were such a gift as a mother, wife, grandmother, aunt, great aunt, and great grandmother. You taught me to always cherish the music. Always use it to keep us entertained, to keep us all joyful. Those are the lessons I'll always remember from you. No matter how dark it gets, family and connection remains constant. Forever in my heart and in the hearts of so many others, you are already dearly missed. I love you and rest easy, Mom.
I'm going to be honest with everyone. My mom would have hated what we're all wearing today. I don't think I ever saw her wear black, gray, or any muted color a single day in my life. If she were in charge of this event, I can promise you the dress code would have been different. My mom had a way of making ordinary things feel extraordinary. She spoke with such care and enthusiasm that even the smallest details became something special. A kitchen renovation wasn't just an update, it was beautiful, gorgeous. If I had to describe her with one word, one that holds everything she was and everything she will be to me, it would be dazzling. She was larger than life, and that spirit showed in the way she moved through the world. Whether she was traveling and bringing back souvenirs from across the globe, or just coming to our house in Cherry Hill, going to the opera or the Philadelphia Orchestra, meeting for lunch, or walking through the King of Prussia Mall, she believed life was always worth dressing up for. When my friends heard about my mom's passing, another word kept coming up again and again: iconic. She is forever an icon, they said, and they were right. Everything my mom did was bold, over the top, and filled with love to the brim. She schlepped frozen pies down to Florida for Thanksgiving. She dressed up as RBG for Halloween. She did a striptease during one of her many Watermark musicals. She got into tiny feuds with the director of those musicals because she wasn't getting enough solos, which, as her granddaughter, I strongly agree. She got bat mitzvahed at age 83. She wrote elaborate poems for every birthday and big moment. Everything was a production. Everything was a song. She truly provided the soundtrack to our lives, and I hope she knew just how many people she touched. Although I didn't inherit my mom's musical talent or her love of the stage, I'm happy to report that we still had plenty in common. We shared a love of shopping, hitting the snooze button one too many times, being fashionably late, spoiling my dog Jackson, wearing chunky jewelry, ignoring texts that we just didn't want to deal with at the time, hating cheese but loving cheesy Hallmark movies, and having very strong, non-negotiable opinions about Philadelphia sports and politics. Growing up, it was almost disarming how loudly my mom loved me and all of her grandchildren. She gave the tightest hugs and expected them in return. Squeeze harder, she'd say, if our hugs were too casual. Run to me, she'd say, as she entered our house if we were meandering towards her too slowly for her liking. She was willing to go to the most random vegan restaurants just to be with me, even if she was secretly thinking that her seitan steak sandwich was sacrilegious compared to her beloved real steak one. Recently, I was looking through old texts and found a thread with me, my mom, and my Aunt Linda. It was Mother's Day a few years ago, and I had sent some pictures of us together. Mom, as usual, was dressed head to toe in pink. She responded, "I love these pictures. Do you think I am too colorful?" Aunt Linda replied, "Never too colorful, perfectly colorful." I think that says it all. You were so perfectly colorful, Mama. We will miss you so much.
Thanks so much for the beautiful and very touching and moving reflections. I'll do my best to not do too much repeating, but I don't think any repetition would actually be minded all that much. Even so, see what we can manage. So first of all, when I was speaking with Debbie late last week about setting up a time to come meet with the family, well, you said something that stayed with me. You said, "I think you are really going to enjoy hearing about my mom and her life story." And that conversation, very meaningful as it was, and on which these words are based, certainly did not disappoint. Can emphasize that what was immediately present was a deep sense of love and of loss, but also appreciation and admiration for a woman who in so many ways embodied these themes that you have heard emphasized: resilience and strength. Reva lived with intention, independence, and what can also be described as exceptional heart. Despite challenges and what might have been viewed by others as setbacks, she did so with warmth rather than hardness, and with openness rather than closing herself off to the possibilities that always remained, possibilities she recognized and embraced. Now, usually, well, the music's appropriate, I think. Usually I'll kind of circle back to Jewish commitments and moments later on in reflections in the form of eulogies, but I did really love that the very first thing you shared in our conversation was of her bat mitzvah. It wasn't the bat mitzvah that she might have enjoyed had it been available to her as a younger girl, but the one she chose and designed and threw for herself in December of 2022. It created lasting and very special memories for all of you and completed something she had aspired to through the many B'nai Mitzvah celebrations she attended and cherished with her family over the years. When it came to that bat mitzvah and so much else, why would it be anything other than a famous song lyric to describe this exceptional musician's approach to life? Of course, she did it her way. Her life was a constant reflection of what mattered most to her. It's a special thing for a family to be able to clearly restate those priorities and to do so succinctly: family, music, Judaism. It was all reflected in that beautiful simcha, which is why I thank you for sharing this story with me, for showing me the photograph of the happy and yes, proudly smiling bat mitzvah girl, and to know that it was the through line of her life is something that is personally very inspiring. Reva was indeed the mother to all of her children equally, mamam to all of her grandchildren equally. With her, love was never divided. Instead, it was multiplied. Love the story about how you would run into people who would ask you, are you related to Reva Rosard? And when the answer was yes, they would say, please say thank you for us. Please send our love. Many of those same people are thinking of all of you now, and they are sending their condolences, and may that all bring some comfort in this moment of such significant loss. She shared her gift of music and her teaching of it as a synagogue choir director at Beth Hillel Bethel, where she is surely remembered with great fondness. And I was also pleased to learn that for a time she also brought musical enrichment to our own Bethel community. Each chapter of her life brought opportunities to expand her circle and deepen her story. She had a great sense of purpose and a strong inner worth. It's only someone with that kind of depth who has the capacity to open their heart so fully to others. She had enough love to share, and she indeed shared it freely. Some of that love also extended to something that wasn't mentioned: her Philadelphia sports loyalties, including her long-standing devotion to the Eagles. It feels especially fitting to reflect on Reva's life through a Jewish lens of music and of soul and spirit. In the book of Psalms, we read, Kol neshama hallelujah, let every soul praise God. Jewish tradition teaches that music has the power to reach places that words cannot, to lift the soul, to connect the inner life of a person with something larger and eternal. Reva understood that intuitively and demonstrated it throughout her life. Through her violin, her teaching, her choirs, and her listening, she lived out that verse. Her life itself became a kind of a song, one that continues to echo and will continue to echo through each and every one of you. Kol neshama has a dual meaning, because it does mean that every soul can offer praise, but kol, kaf lamed, also means all, teaching that the entirety of one's being is meant to do that, and Reva lived that teaching as well. She brought the fullness of herself into the world. She utilized her great personality, her exceptional commitments, her boundless love, and her musical gifts to elevate all of the lives around her. She did so through her blessed 86-year earthly journey. And now we return that praise to her in the form of strong and enduring memories shared today and carried forward by all who had the opportunity and the great privilege to know, love, and appreciate this truly exceptional person in so many lives. So I extend my condolences and those of our Bethel community and family to Debbie and John, Linda and Jonathan, Marcy and Steve, Gary and Anton, Steve and Lori, Bruce and Lynn, to the grandchildren, Leah, Naomi, Aaron, Jeremy, Joel and Srapin, Michael, Nikki and Owen, Joshua and Michaela, Jaden and Milan, and to the great-grandchildren, and Desiree, Saw, Nathaniel and Jack. We'll continue to hear and tell what is indeed the beautiful life story of Reva Rosard. Tenishmatat Zura B'tzura Chayim, may her soul be bound with the bond of eternal life. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. I want to remind everyone that Shiva will take place at Debbie and John's home on Harrogate Drive in Cherry Hill today, with visitation from 6:30 to 8:30 and a service in the home at 7 o'clock p.m. and the same tomorrow on Tuesday, visitation 6:30 to 8:30, service at 7 o'clock, and Shiva on Wednesday and Thursday moves to the home of Linda and Jonathan Lesterston in Rivervale, New Jersey. At this time, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit for the Almale Memorial Prayer. Did we catch her dad's Hebrew name in any better form? Yitzchak is okay? Sorry, it's okay. El Malay Rachamim, Shochen Bamramim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tacha Kanfei Shechina B'Ma'alot Kedoshim U'Torim Kezohar Rakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Rivka, Bat Yitzchak V'Sara, Shehalcha Le'olama, B'Gan Eden Te Menuchata, Ana Bala Rachamim, Astireh B'Seiter Kanafecha Le'olamim, Utzror B'Tzura Chaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachlata, V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al-Mishkava, V'Nomar. Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. To the soul of Rivka Bat Yitzchak V'Sara Reva Rosard, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. At this time, I invite you to be seated for a few more moments. In case it wasn't mentioned explicitly, the family has requested that the interment itself will be private.
May we have the pallbearers to the center aisle, please. I'd like to ask if we could all rise once more, please. If you could please be seated.